Despite all the struggles the NBA has been dealing with over the last few months, no team has been as hard to read as the Houston Rockets. Injuries, roster moves, and COVID have made it very hard for them to establish a rhythm, and now there are more questions than answers when it comes to their future. Their retooling during the offseason and the James Harden saga was enough to put their ability to win games into question. But things turned out worse than expected during the first month of the season, leading to a record that has them among the worst teams in the Western Conference. Still, now that the dust is settled, we might be able to get a better idea of where this team is going. They have the potential to compete for a playoff spot and the assets to start a rebuild. But whatever they decide to do may depend on how they perform during the next few weeks. So let's take a look at what's about to come for the Rockets. Before the start of the season, Houston had attracted the attention of the basketball world because of Harden's trade request. However, even though his intentions became public, it wasn't clear whether he would find a new home before the end of the season. On one hand, some people believed he could change his mind. After all, the reason he wanted to leave was that he didn't feel the Rockets were good enough to win a title. Because of that, the front office managed to put a solid roster around him that included former All-Stars in John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, as well as an intriguing and talented young forward in Christian Wood. So even though the team wasn't perfect, the new-look Rockets had arguably one of its most talented rosters in the Harden era, and since few other teams could offer James such a talented supporting cast, there was a belief he would reconsider his decision. On the other hand, there was the fact that he had little leverage. Unlike impending free agents, Harden still had 2 seasons remaining on his contract. In other words, Houston could take as long as it wanted to decide about trading him. There was also a scarce market for the former MVP. Given his huge contract, immense talent, and a long list of accolades, trading for him meant sending away multiple valuable pieces. And not every franchise was willing to make such an investment. The Rockets front office also made it clear they wanted to receive a haul of future draft picks and a young player with star potential in return for its former franchise player. And on top of that, there were teams reluctant to make an offer for him because of his off-court habits and ball-dominant playing style. The team wasn't in a hurry to send Harden away, and they wouldn't do it unless they received an appropriate package of assets in compensation for him. But even though that was the right approach to take from a management standpoint, the Rockets' play was affected because of it during the early stages of the season. While James was still capable of torching opposing defenses with the scoring and creating plays for his teammates, it quickly became evident that he wasn't engaged with the team. His attitude before the start of the season proved as much, but then as the weeks kept going by, his production also started to decrease. When 2021 started, he stopped playing like an all-star, and his conditioning became a serious concern for a lot of people. He was still putting up decent numbers, but he was no longer willing to put in the effort to help the team win games. So, losses started to pile up, and then after back-to-back blowout defeats at the hands of the Lakers, he decided to speed things up by telling the media the Rockets were just not good enough to win it all. The result, as we all know, was the blockbuster trade that sent him to Brooklyn and included 3 other teams. And while most of the attention was on the future draft picks acquired by the team, the deal also allowed it to try to change how things have been going so far. Houston acquired Victor Oladipo from Indiana to take Harden's place as the team's starting shooting guard. And while he may not be as talented as the Beard, he's an excellent piece to add to a core that looks solid on paper. With him on board, the Rockets now have 3 former All-Stars on the roster and a young player who could also become one in the future. And now that James is gone, they'll be able to start over again. For the better part of the last decade, the Rockets system relied on Harden putting up incredible numbers on a daily basis to give them a chance to win games. First, that allowed them to become one of the best teams in the West. But as the seasons went by, Houston's offense deteriorated to the point where most possessions consisted of Harden dribbling the ball before taking a step-back 3 while his teammates stood around him and watched. That playing style ended up putting a ceiling on the team, and it also bothered some of the players who thought they were being misused by the team. The front office tried to change that during the offseason by replacing Mike D'Antoni with Stephen Silas, a former assistant coach who'd been responsible for taking the Mavericks' offense to historic levels during last season. However, instead of focusing on implementing a new system that would help the new pieces play to their strengths, Silas had to deal with constant questions about Harden and how his attitude was affecting the team. So while it's still too early to predict the Rockets' revival, the truth is they have the pieces to start playing better. And if Silas can put his players in a position to succeed, there's no reason to believe the team shouldn't remain competitive and perhaps even earn a playoff spot. For instance, Wood has had a breakout season as a starter so far. He's been averaging 23.5 points and 10.8 rebounds per game on 52% shooting from the field and 36% shooting from long range while also playing solid defense. More often than not, he's been Houston's silver lining, and now there's a chance he assumes a bigger responsibility on the offensive end as one of the future leaders of the team. Wall has also put up excellent numbers in his return from injury, showing the reasons why he was considered one of the best point guards in the league a few years ago. The biggest concern surrounding him has been his health, given he's already missed almost half of his team's games. so the medical staff will have to keep a close eye on him. But if he manages to remain on the court, he could help the team unlock its best version of themselves. Cousins seemingly hasn't been able to have such a good recovery from past injuries, and he's had to take on a reduced role as a result. But he's shown a presence on the boards that could be key in the future. And most recently, he put on a vintage performance that included 28 points, 17 rebounds, and 5 assists. He doesn't need to be as dominant as he was during his time in Sacramento to help his team win. But if he can play good defense, grab rebounds, and score when at a decent rate, he'll become a major asset. Role players like Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker have continued doing their thing. Gordon has been arguably the one that's made the most out of Harden's departure by having an increased role within the offense. And others like rookie Jae'Sean Tate have been making an impact by doing the small things. Last but not least, there's Oladipo. He's also looking to regain his pre-injury form, and so far, he's managed to play at a high level on both ends of the court. In his first game as a Rocket, he scored the second most points by a player in his debut with the team while also making 9 assists. He quickly showed great chemistry with Wood, and after the game was over, talked about how he believed the team could become more successful in the future. In short, Houston has a better roster than most teams in the league. Even if none of their former All-Stars regain their previous condition, they're still talented enough to help their new team win games. Their role players have also been playing excellent, and Wood, who was considered as a gamble a couple of months ago, has exceeded all expectations so far. The team has the talent to compete against anyone. They only need to get used to playing with each other to develop a rhythm. But once they do, they should be in the running for a playoff spot. After all, despite how competitive the West is, they're only a game and a half away from the 8th seed. However, if things don't work out as expected, they will also have the chance to start a rebuild and focus on building a roster that's capable of contending in the future. If the team can't turn things around, they can look to trade some pieces in exchange for young players or draft picks. For instance, Gordon is signed for 3 more seasons, and he could help any team in need of additional shooting and shot creating. Rival teams have also asked about Tucker's availability, and it's no secret the Heat could be interested in making a deal for Oladipo. The only player that would be difficult to trade away is Wall. Even if he's capable of playing at a high level, his value will be attached to his health. And even then, it may be difficult to find a team willing to take on his $40 million contract. But other than that, the team is already in a solid position to start rebuilding if it desires to do it. With Brooklyn's picks and the ability to add more assets by moving pieces away, they may be able to find a foundational player in the draft. But if they don't want to look that far, they can start building a new roster around Wood. Considering his production so far, his contract is already looking like one of the biggest bargains in the whole league. The most impressive part is that he may keep getting better. In the end, whatever the Rockets decide to do, they'll have a chance to be successful. Rookie GM Rafael Stone has done an impressive job of retooling the team and putting it in a situation where it has more flexibility than ever. Now, Houston will be able to try out a new system with an entirely new core of players. If things go well, they may extend their league-leading streak of playoff appearances. And if they don't, they can start building the next era of Rockets basketball. In other words, they faced one of the most difficult situations in the NBA and came out with a win. And that's worthy of some applause. But now, what do you believe is the best for their future as a team? Should they go all in trying to make the playoffs, or is it time to start looking at the rebuild button? Let us know in the comments. We hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to like it and subscribe to our channel for more NBA content, because we are Courtside.